All right, in this clip from the Exodus podcast, we're talking with Christian Babcock from Hunter's Advantage, and he's discussing the importance of finding a mentor for hunting and also how to transition all the way from private land to public land when you lose access. Hope you guys enjoyed this clip. Let's get right into it. Here we go. Because your uncle was a guest on Whitetail Cribs in 21, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So Chad and Cameron went out to Oklahoma. I think they recorded, I don't know, 5 or 6 cribs, and your uncle had the whitetail ambulance, which is one of the most unique pieces of whitetail cribs out of all the ones we've done. So just explain that a little bit so people can get an idea what that entailed.
Yeah. So I talked about it a little bit earlier, but my uncle has definitely been one of my hunting mentors, probably one of the bigger ones, and one that's really got me into hunting on public land, especially. And he's very much one of those like DIY guys. Like, if you can see it, he can build it. Like, I swear, I roomed with a lot of engineers in college, and there's like book knowledge and then there's like actual applied knowledge. My uncle is an engineer without a degree. Like, he can sketch anything out, and if you can imagine it, he could build it, right? And so he took there was a ambulance that was for sale. I think the fire department had it. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to buy the back half of it, and then someone else can have the cab in the front. So he sold the cab and the engine to another guy and was like, that's going to be my public land rig. So he like took it, had all the storage. Like, if you ever talk to him, he loves to talk about all the storage in the ambulance. And he cut it off, like basically welded a tongue and then like a bed on the front where he could like put his four-wheeler up on it. And he sleeps in that thing everywhere he goes on public land. So it's a really awesome rig. He's outfitted it, like he put cots in there and all that sort of stuff. And he loves to show it off to people. He's recently painted it since you guys saw it last.
Okay.
Yeah. He calls it the meat wagon, which I think is hilarious. That's just that is a funny thing to call your hunting rig. He's not one of the people that's going to go buy a new camper or anything. So the meat wagon has made many treks to public land in Oklahoma and had some pretty good success out of it.
Has he always hunted public land, or have you maybe inspired him a little bit to venture out?
No, he's definitely inspired me. So he had always hunted the mountains in Oklahoma quite a bit, in the eastern part of the state, and had some pretty good success, rifle hunting and muzzleloader hunting. There's a lot of those places you can do that on. But when he really got serious about public land hunting was like in 2010. He went up to Kansas, and obviously it's a completely different game in Kansas in 2023 than it was in 2010. But he shot like 152-inch 10 on public land in Kansas. And the deer is like 24 inches wide, and it has like 1-inch eye guards. So you got to realize that's 150-inch 8, basically, minus 2 inches. So that deer was 153 and like netted 151. I think that was his second Pope and Young. But every big deer he's killed has been on public land. He killed one in Oklahoma this year that was 165.
I seen that.
So
that was awesome.
Incredible buck. I mean, so yeah, he's been doing it for a long time. And we've originally what we did was like, we would just piggyback off him. So anywhere he would go, we would go and just try to establish our own spot. But there was a period of time for about 3 or 4 years where the only places I would hunt would be places that he recycled, like places he's like, I'm not hunting there anymore. I'm like, well, I don't know, crap. I couldn't tell you any type of tree tracks. I suck at hunting. This is a long time ago, but I would just use his old pins, and it worked for me for a long time. And he's not that nice anymore. He won't let us take all his spots anymore. But when you're 18 or 16 years old, he would. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And so it seemed like some of this birth of public land was birthed a little bit out of necessity. It sounded like you lost some access to private, and it was kind of one way to illustrate is pushed out of the nest. Like, are you going to fly, or are you going to fall flat on your face? And I would say you guys have been flying. So at the time, what was your expectations? Because obviously you guys, it's all correlated to the amount of work and information that you try to consume in order to be more effective. So I'm giving you credit for that. But beyond that, how was that process? Was it intimidating? Were you nervous? Or you're like, I'm just going to figure it out, and it's a matter of time?
Yeah, like I'm definitely nervous, but like you said, born out of necessity. So we went all through college being able to hunt private land, right? Like my uncle had several, not Justin, a different uncle had several decent places that I'd shot several bucks off with my bow. He ended up selling that place. It was gone. Jake ended up losing permission to a place, one of his grandparents' places. I'm trying to think what else happened. Yeah, basically a bunch of that happens. Land changes hands. People lose permission to stuff. Stuff sells. It just naturally it happens, right? And so on the 2020 season, so it'd be the summer of 2020, we sat down and I was like, okay, I don't have a single piece of private land that I can hunt, like in the entire state. And I grew up in Oklahoma my entire life. And so to have basically nowhere to hunt. I was like, this really sucks. Like but it just happens naturally, right? And it was a similar story to Jake. And we were like, listen, we had experiences on public land from 2016 to 2019, but very not out of necessity, right? Like not an obsessive take on public land. Basically, just hey, when we have a weekend where we think it's going to suck back at home, we're going to go check out public land. And for the amount of effort that we put in, we kind of had a rabbit's foot because in 2017 there was a weekend where every one of us shot a buck on public land. Now we all sucked at hunting, so none of us found those deer. One of the deer that I shot though was a about 140-inch 8. I know people hear that, right? 140-inch 8 BS, right? No, I know what 140-inch 8 looks like. Basically, this buck had came in. I watched him all morning coming off the top of a ridge down into this oak flat. I had just bought a brand new bow from Academy, one of the piece of crap ready to hunt rigs for like $300-400. And this buck, when I got it in a full draw, my pin was just shaking all over him. And I'd never seen a buck bigger than like 110 inches in my whole life. So to see 140, that might as well have been a 200. And so I pulled back and I shot and I jerked the shot terribly. It went right in front of the deer's brisket, or it would have, but the deer had its head down when I shot. So what happened was that bow was slow, right? So when I shot, he threw his head up to look at me and it was right in front of his brisket. It hit square in the forehead. And that deer ran off, not even a half inch of penetration with a fixed blade broadhead. It looked like somebody had hit him with a Louisville slugger in the head, just knocked him backwards. He ran off, broke the knock off, never found that deer. That made me sick. But I knew based on a few of the experiences we had, me shooting a buck, Jake shooting one, our buddy Jared shooting one, not finding any of them. Hey, public land is there for the taking. It was just kind of us, right? Our lack of skills is kind of what's bottlenecking us on public land. It's not access. It's not finding deer. It's not hunting hard. It's just we need to be better as archers, as bow hunters, and so that progression, from 2017 to 2020, we got a heck of a lot better at hunting on public land, and we had a heck of a lot of success in 2020. Jake shot a 162-inch buck on public. I shot a 131-inch 8, but going into that, we were super nervous and ended up having a lot of success though after getting forced out of the nest of private land.
Yeah, it's kind of probably at the time it was frustrating, but now it's maybe one of the better things that's happened in reality.
It definitely is, because I think about that now. It's, if you're not learning, you're not getting better, right? But we were never put in situations where we had to learn at all, right? It's like, go to that stand we've had over there for a decade, sit over this corn pile or sit in this field, where they're going to use this. We never had to know anything about hunting. We were just going out and sitting in places that everybody had sit in forever. And eventually, we would shoot a deer doing that. But I had no idea how to read sign. I had no idea how to pick a stand based on wind location or terrain features or anything like that. So going out on public land was definitely like getting kicked out of the nest. But I promise you, I've shot bigger deer since then. That 8 that I have on public land is my favorite buck I've ever shot, because average Joe could have walked up under that tree and shot that same deer. So it just means a heck of a lot more when you have to work for it like that.